Hey everyone, and welcome to the Real Life Show. We're back again for what we have just realised is episode 10 of the Real Life Show. Episode 10. Double digits. I feel like it's a landmark we should celebrate.
Yeah,
well done, you. It's
really cool.
Well done. Episode 10 of Real Life Show. And our guest for episode 10, we've got a corker. We've got a good one. It's Joanne Cox.
Yes. It's very
Welcome,
nice to
Jo.
be here.
Welcome. Welcome to the Real Life Show. Just before we get on to our guest, thank you, Backyard, for having us as usual. Thank you, Andrea, and the team for hosting us in this lovely, wonderful venue. Come and check out Backyard. It's not far from church, but if you search, just around the corner, if you search Backyard Cafe on anywhere, you'll find this wonderful, wonderful little coffee shop. No, it's a cafe.
It's beautiful.
It's not a coffee shop, it's a cafe.
Yeah.
You can get coffee.
But you
can get cake
food.
and really good food.
Oh, really good cakes.
What's your backyard order?
Oh, is it the Mackyard?
Ooh.
Yeah, Mackyard. That lasts me all day, that does.
Does it?
Yeah.
I came once and had some kind of like breakfast. Sorry, Joe, we'll be with you in a sec.
No, it's fine.
We had some kind of breakfast. We will be with you. You ever been to backyard for a meal?
Yes, but not for a little bit, so I feel like I'm overdue a visit.
Okay, you definitely.
So I'll just keep recommending.
Yeah. I had this breakfast. It came with like these roast potatoes. Though, on the
I know
breakfast.
exactly what you
They
mean.
come with the pork sandwich as well.
Yes, and it was pork. Yes, it was.
Oh,
Divine.
Yeah,
So good.
divine.
Hit yourself down. But I guess, Joe, welcome to the
to
Real
Joe.
Life. Over to Joe. We're back here. I've got a great plug today. Joe, welcome.
Yay.
Introduce yourself to our viewers, listeners, who you are, and maybe a little bit about yourself.
nice. I don't want to skip too far ahead, so I'll just say I'm Jo.
Yeah.
I can't remember if people normally do like ages and stuff.
See what you feel
I'm
like
29.
Oh,
I have always lived in Dudley,
always.
apart from for a year, but we'll get on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just really
Bit more, like, let's go a bit more detailed than Dudley.
okay.
Where would people know your accent from?
I know exactly where you're going with this. Gornal.
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 Yes.
Because
You've got a certain dialect, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
But I put posh accents on.
Do you? Have you got it on now?
I've got like a mild version.
Have you?
At work, nobody would understand me.
But we wouldn't understand you.
No, like nobody at work understands me if I even go slightly broad. So I
Okay.
feel like I have to. I can't put on a posh accent because I'm just not posh.
Is there anybody that comes out round the most?
Like my family.
Your family.
You know, and I've been
Yeah.
around my family.
Yeah.
When
You know,
go
like when
home.
people put extra like syllables in, like something like with like like O-U-R.
Hour.
Is our. But it's not even our.
That's how I
it's
say
our.
hour there.
Our. Yeah.
I say it like that.
Yeah.
You're from Gornal.
I'm from
too,
Gornal.
aren't you?
Exactly. There we go. You're
There
from
we go.
Gornal. So I can't.
So we're teaming up today
I
to.
know, yeah.
Because
We speak really posh in
we
Netherton.
have had a couple of moments on odd occasions where we found out the guest is from Netherton,
Oh, yeah.
and I felt a little bit
Have you? You felt left
outnumbered.
out?
Outnumbered is the number I feel. Today I feel like we outnumber you,
Yeah. That's okay though, because we're all friends.
and isn't that what brings us together? That brings us together.
How wholesome.
Anyway, Joe, we've spoken about it before. You are a Real Life Show listener,
She is.
which is
Not a
interesting.
viewer.
Not a
Not
viewer.
a viewer.
A listener.
A
Is it in the car?
Yeah, on a walk. Just
On a walk with
anywhere.
it, we're in area.
She's so efficient.
It's nice. It's funny because I'm such an audio person
Yeah.
that I can tell you like what I was doing during certain episodes or like
Really?
moments of episodes because it just so
Can
links in
we
my
try
head.
that out?
Yeah, but you don't want to know
What-
if it's true.
Yeah, let's. I mean, like, can you tell us what have you got like a favourite guest that we've had so far?
Oh.
Like I'm not. They've all been great.
Good.
I really like Jackie's.
Everyone,
Oh,
a couple of
yeah.
people say that.
Yeah.
Jackie's was
Can you
great.
tell us what you were doing when you were listening to Jackie's?
But that one was the one time that I wasn't. I was watching it with Ellie. So
Oh,
that one
okay.
doesn't quite count.
But you know though.
But I know,
You
yeah,
though,
yeah. So
Well,
that's
do you have
what-
us on times 2 speed or?
Yes.
Do you have what, sorry?
She has us on times 2 speed.
Oh, of course she does.
It's like
I do.
It's so funny because I have to slow things down to listen to it and to really
Joe speeds it
concentrate.
up.
And Joe
The
speeds it
opposite.
up. What does that say?
What are we like sped up? Can you
Just
understand us?
Higher pitched, yeah.
So when we laugh, we're like,
I imagine it was sped up. It's quite intense.
Yeah, it's quite intense.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But it works.
Some people must you can't hear some people surely and understand some people. Like no one, you wouldn't be able to understand what I just said then. So I'm talking quite fast
that
right
was
now.
really fast.
Maybe, but I've kind of trained myself to be able to listen quickly though. Like it's been a
Can you go
process.
faster than ×2?
Yeah, I've listened to books on ×3 now.
No, you haven't.
Genuinely have. I'm like I'm majoring on how quick. Can
I'm
I
listening to an
listen.
audiobook currently on Spotify, which is 10 hours long. So ×3 would be
3.5 hours.
Oh, look, she just works that out really quickly.
been there, done that.
What book are you listening to?
It's the memoir of Matthew Perry.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice.
It's would recommend it if you're a fan of him.
Okay.
Wouldn't recommend it if you want like a light listen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He knew God, didn't he?
He did, and I haven't got there yet because I'm having to
okay.
listen to it in like drips and drabs.
Oh, okay.
Is that the right term? Drips
Yes.
and drabs.
Drips and drops.
Yeah.
I'm having to listen to it just to protect myself, really. Like, make sure I'm happy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Afterwards, like, you know what I'm doing afterwards? I'm listening to the Real Life show to bring me back up. Or some worship music just to bring me back to earth.
To protect yourself.
Yeah, yes.
That's funny.
Should we get
Right,
going?
let's get going.
It's
shall
great
we?
start though, enjoyed it.
So, Joe, you'll know because you've watched listened to Real Life Show. We always start here. We want to know, how did you come to know Jesus?
Yeah. So I was in Australia for a gap year, working at a school, just doing outdoor education with the kids, which was great. Loved it. And I was 18 at the time, didn't know Jesus at all. I've been there since the July, and Ellie, my best friend, came across at Christmas for like 2 months, and we travelled all down the East Coast, and it was really, really lovely. And then in the February, it was then time for her to go. And I think it was like a mixture of, I kind of felt a bit lonely all of a sudden because I'd been used to being on my own up until then. We had such a good time. I was suddenly had like 6 months left and I was just on my own. Normally I'm okay with that. So I just think it was just a Holy Spirit thing where I suddenly just felt really, really compelled to read the Bible, which is bizarre because I'd never read it, never been interested in it. Ellie had been a Christian for years. I remember saying to her, like, oh, you're a Christian or something. Like, that's as hostile as I got. But, yeah.
What did he call it?
So, I was just never really interested. And then, so randomly felt like I should read the Bible. I honestly don't know why.
Did you have a Bible with you?
No,
then?
so there's a bit of a separate bit here. So I actually downloaded it on Kindle because the app wasn't around because this was like 2012.
Those little things that you used to have for the Kindle things.
The Kindle, yeah, and it was just like a free ESV version, which I didn't even know what that meant anyway. But there was a book that I was given before I left by a group down at Zor Church. I wasn't part of church there because I didn't really go to church. I helped out at their youth group to get a bit more experience of like working with teenagers because that's what I'd be doing. Okay. And they sent me with a book by Brian Houston, who I didn't know was a Christian. It's called How to Flourish in Life, and at the start they'd written Deut 31:8, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant, and then ended up Googling it. It's a Bible verse that says, God's with you wherever you go, he won't leave you or forsake you, don't be afraid or discouraged. And from then on, I started at the very start of the Bible and just kept reading.
Wow.
Bizarre. And then a week later, because that was like on the Sunday evening, so then the whole week I hadn't started back to work yet, so I basically just read the Bible. We had a really nice river by us, and I'd just go for nice walks or bike rides. And then I Googled a church, and on the Sunday morning, caught the bus, got a bit lost, ended up at a church. Not even sure if it was on a Google, to be honest. Okay. But it was a church, and it was really similar to Arise, which I didn't know at the time. But it was like young and vibrant and Pentecostal and just like not what I was used to at all, but felt really at home there. I'm just going to keep going. Made really great friends there. Yeah. It turns out, so a girl called Lauren was a really good friend. And she was like obsessed with British culture. So when I walked in and she heard the British accent, she was like, oh my gosh, and just everybody took me in. So I was just really well looked after.
What was that first Sunday like? Did you in those first encounters, in those first couple of weeks, what were they like?
Yeah, so the first time I was there, it was their evening service, which was like a bit of a deeper kind of service, but I didn't know that. And I remember the Oceans album from Hillsong had just come out.
Wow.
So they were singing Oceans, and then Break Every Chain by Jesus Culture. So they're like my favourite songs now, because there's just so much power in it. So the first week I was like, okay, this feels really different and powerful. The second week somebody spoke on being filled with the Holy Spirit, and I was filled with the Holy Spirit, and I was speaking in tongues and just all sorts, which was totally...
It was a rapid change.
Yeah. So was
Massively.
that the first church? That was the first church that you Googled?
Yeah, I think it was the church that I Googled.
So then you just carried on
I
going?
just took it, yeah.
How long did you have left in Australia then?
So I came back in the June, July. That was the start of Feb.
Wow.
So quite a...
So that's
5 months.
okay, so you had a couple of months in Australia.
Yep.
Where you were going to that church regularly?
Yeah, like every week. Met up with them in the week, went to connect groups, turned up at their band practices even though I wasn't on band. Like literally, was fully in. Like different missions work that they did around the town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything. It's like a proper deep dive.
That's mad. So like the second week you said you were filled with the Holy Spirit. Like just for people watching and listening, like what was that experience? Like what did that feel like?
So like I think it's really personal, so it can look different with everybody. But for me, it was like my hands were shaking, and I was like, you know that thing of like, is it the aircon or not? Because it was like a really cool church, and I was like, am I dithering or am I shaking? And then I was like, just really aware of his presence, like crying, then started speaking in tongues, which I really didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah.
People came over and like prophesied over me, and it was just like this, like an exhale, like a real breathing out, like weight off your shoulders, like like it just felt so freeing and light.
Yeah. So sorry. Prior to this, how long did you be in Australia?
So from the previous July.
Oh wow! So you'd
So
done a massive chunk of time just in Australia, just working.
It was like there's two separate sections to my Australia story. There's like the first bit, which was a lot heavier with like taking the kids on camp and stuff, made loads of friends. Then there was the travel bit in between, and then the bit after it, we still had quite a lot of camps, but I seemed to be around more weekends, which was good because then I was able to go to church.
Are there any moments in that so post Jesus moments while you were in Australia, which like you can look at as like really poignant moments in faith, which you took home with you or anything like that? Yeah.
So obviously, like just really need to swallow. Getting like lots of friends, and I remember like certain connect groups where I was suddenly like learning how to read the Bible and kind of like discuss it with people, and that this is like actually true, and this is what the gospel accounts mean. And when we say reading a book, like I was starting from such a basic knowledge of it that I had no idea about New Testament and Old Testament. I had no idea about what books meant, what the names were, what chapters were, who put it like this. Like it was all just completely foreign to me. So they really helped with that. When I was on camp, I had this experience where, so I got really good at kayaking. We were on like a kayaking camp on this massive dam. Like you could barely see the other side from where you were. And I was taking back a double kayak. So I was sat in the back of it, and then means like the nose was up quite a bit. And it was fine. I'd done that loads of times. And suddenly like halfway through, maybe a bit less, I was just having a really nice time, and like this massive swell came up, and like it was like a storm, so it went really dark. The waves were like coming over the kayak. It was literally, because I'd obviously just been reading about in the Bible like all the different things where Jesus calms the storms and the seas, and it felt like such a weird biblical moment of like, oh my gosh, everything is crashing in around me. There was like poisonous snakes in the water. I didn't have like food, I didn't have water, I didn't have my radio. Like I was completely on my own, because it should have been such a simple like paddle back. And we just set up camp on the bank, and I could see like the smoke from the fire. So I knew where I was heading. Then as it started raining, I lost sight of like the smoke, and I didn't know where I was going. And like I can't even explain the force, because I had my paddle and I was pulling with all my might to get back, and the paddle just was bending, and I literally couldn't like could not move it at all and just kept getting pushed back and back into these reeds where I then got stuck and I had to like pull myself along. It was very dramatic, and then got rescued by some people on the bank because I kind of just dragged the kayak out and I was on the bank and I was like, I'm just going to have to like find a way to sit this out and like get a bit warmer because it was obviously we were really high up, so it was quite cold even though it was Australia. And these people came round and was like, are you okay? And then we found a ranger and then I managed to get back to camp and had a hot chocolate, which was nice. But when I got back, so I didn't have like my phone or anything when I was on camp because there's no signal. But when I got back, Ellie, who had kind of been aware that I was having these encounters with Jesus and like become a Christian, then was like, what on earth were you doing on Wednesday? Because I just had this like overwhelming urge to pray for you. And like that was the Wednesday that I nearly died.
Wow.
So for me, that was like, I remember bursting into tears. I was like, oh my gosh, like God saw that and somehow alerted Ellie on the other side of the world to pray for me.
Yeah.
And I love how he kind of just invites us into moments like that to validate how much he loves us, but then also that Ellie gets that as part of her story.
Yeah.
It's great.
Amazing.
So there's quite a few like fundamental moments really early on in my like walk with Jesus that have so shaped and transformed what I do now and who I am. That like I always said like it felt like I was on a bit of like an accelerated path because I remember coming back to Arise, I joined like youth straight away. I was baptised. I went on mission to Bosnia like all within a year, and it was just like there was just all of these things where it was like God's just and there's this and there's this and there's this and I just kind of kept saying yes. So
and it really was like a complete change, wasn't it? What was your pre-Australia? What was your exposure to Jesus? Was there any?
So like bits that Ellie had said about, and she obviously invited us to church. Do you remember the Copthorne events that used to happen?
Sunday,
So I was
called Sunday Lights or something.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
like,
or Sunday at Copthorne. I thought it was called Copthorne.
Oh, was it?
Don't know. I remember it though. Yeah.
So there was a couple of those that I went to. Do you remember the Victorian markets?
Yeah.
So stuff like that, where like I was definitely on the periphery. Obviously, loads of youth went to King Swinford School, and I was there as well. So like I had all of that sort of exposure to people. But in terms of to church, like there's a few times I went to church, like at Zor with the where like the youth group was, but it was just a really different vibe, and like I didn't really get it at all because I just don't think it was my time for it to click. But all of these things are like seeds, aren't they? So they'll all have had an impact, which I think is great. And then it just got to that point where it was just like a real compelled to read the Bible and start going to church and stuff. So.
It is incredible, isn't it?
Like
it is
switch,
mad.
Isn't it?
It's a proper switch. Like
Yeah.
my parents did not know what to think when I came back because they just thought it was like an Australia thing. Like,
Okay.
Like
the holiday thing.
Yeah, like you found that over there, but how's it going to fit into your life back here? And what's going to like? It's like a fad.
That must have been quite strange for them. Like obviously, you go away to Australia, and then you come back as now a Christian. Like how did they respond to that?
Yeah, so like I've got lovely parents, so like they're totally supportive. But there was a part where they were like, "What? What on earth happened?" And then like because I got so involved with church, I think naturally as a parent they're a bit protective. So they're like, "Wow, like you're spending a lot of time there all of a sudden. Like what's going on there? And like you're putting in so much time to it. Is there anything else that you kind of should be putting in time to?"
And they're
all
like
of
common,
those things.
They are common questions,
and
aren't they?
it's totally
normal, almost.
Totally. But for me, I think it was more that like I think when you follow Jesus and make that decision, like there should be a real difference between your previous life and the life that you then live. Yeah. Like, and for some people that takes a bit of time, which is fine. But for me, like it was already such a switch that it was like to then try and pull that back didn't make any sense to me. And I'd kind of had 6 months to become accustomed to the new ways of living that I felt led into. That like for them it would have just been this Joe went and this other Joe's coming back. But like I think they could just see all the positives that also came from it. That's just a natural outworking of having a purpose that you know and being secure in who you are continually, that being worked on. That they then just were like, okay, this is what's happening now.
If someone said to you, like, so I asked this question quite regularly to people who had this kind of transformation, because I've known Jesus my entire life. Like, I honestly don't know life without being in church and every Sunday coming to church. I love asking the question of like what is the difference? Because obviously you've experienced life where you didn't follow Jesus or you didn't know Jesus, and like so you came back and your mum and dad and your family would have gone, "Who's it? What has changed? Like, what is this difference? How you might not be able to describe it, but is there a way of describing like what is the change inside and outwardly maybe?"
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like it is a freedom that comes because like I think the ways you make decisions or the actions that you take beforehand are motivated by such different things like self-protection or self-promotion or just having to look after yourself, that suddenly it's such a relief when you find out that like I actually don't have to play that role and I'm covered already and I'm protected already and I'm provided for already. So there's almost then a distance that comes from that where you're able to step back and say, okay, so like how can I live now being free of all of that stuff that was previously like a bit of a limiting belief over myself.
Yeah. That's great.
And I think like it's hard to name that in the moment, but that's when I look back, that's how I see my decision making change. And obviously decision making is what influences behaviour, and how you think about yourself influences your behaviour. I think I've got such a switch around, and I think like there's milestones that I can put in my life for where like another switch happened and another switch happened, because there's so much transformation that comes through the Holy Spirit. But for that moment it was like just a freedom of that's not my responsibility anymore. What is God calling me to do instead?
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Really good.
So you said you come back as well, and like you were at church loads, like you really jumped in like on mission straight away, all that kind of stuff. And your mum and dad were like, how is this going to fit in? Like, is this just a holiday thing? Is this just a year out thing? How did you find? And I think I probably know the answer to this, but did you find that it just worked? And like this transformation of whatever, I was church 3 times a week that week or whatever, or 4 times. Did you find that it just became your norm?
Yeah, totally. Like I think, like God knows, doesn't he? And so he knew that at that time, like I'd had Australia, then I had another year out while I applied for uni, which is another story in itself. But like that year, like I think God had just set that apart for me to be able to really like be embedded in everything that he'd called me to be, everything that like he was kind of speaking over to me and kind of drawing me into. And so it's almost like a protected time that I've not then got re-distracted by university or by a job. And not everybody gets that, and I think it then looks slightly different in other people's lives where they get a grace somewhere else. For me, that was like a year just of God's graciousness that he was able to, like, just I was able to sit with that and really like to be fair, I remember talking to Ellie about it, like, can I come to the church that you go to? Like, I don't want to impose because all your friends are there and all that sort of stuff. And she was like, no, like, absolutely, please come. And, like, the group of friends there were just so inviting. And, like, especially at that age, it was just, you know, we were always around each other's houses, and it was, you know, just making memories and just really deep conversations all the time. And it was just such a, like, a forming year that it did just work. And I think that's just... like, it's not a surprise that it worked, because that's just how God works.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Wow. Which is cool.
So obviously you got on board with like church and joining teams and everything. Can you explain to us what your role is within church now? You do so many things.
I can try. So I'm on senior leadership team, preaching team, worship team, and that is and hosting team.
When she's available
when I'm
to
available.
do so.
And then sometimes I have a Sunday where I just turn up. So like it kind of stretches across most of the touch points of church, I think.
Yeah.
Especially like SLT and that, like prayerful oversight, strategy and decisions and stuff. And like I think so. Especially even probably knowing me now, like some of these roles are not my natural characteristics, like to be on stage, for example, especially in like the run up to Australia. Everybody was really shocked I was going to Australia. And I find it really odd because I think like I was being led by the Spirit before I even knew Jesus.
Yeah, wow.
And so like how much more can I just trust that he is leading me now?
Yeah.
Because I do actually know him. And so there's just those moments where it's like, I have no idea how I've ended up here, but God knows, and that's cool. And so I'm glad that, like, I didn't get asked what I wanted to be on as such. I just ended up in these moments, and then the gift was able to come out, and I was like, oh, I've got like something to say, or oh, I've got something to add there. And then I've had leaders call it out of me. And so I think that's just like exactly how God works, that it's just the surprising little things that he leads you into. So that's why I'm on all 3 of those things, 4 of those things.
And actually, go on. No, you go.
Can I just ask, what's your favourite team to be on?
Knew you were going to ask
and
that.
there's a correct answer here, Joe.
There is a correct answer.
It depends, because if you ask me on a Sunday when I'm on band, I'll say it's band, and then if you ask me just after I've preached, I'll say, oh, it's preaching. I do think preaching. I think if you were to take any of them away, that's the one where I think if I wasn't doing that, I am not stewarding a gift that God has given me.
That's
and
good.
I feel a real responsibility on that.
How amazing though! I was just thinking, like, you spent so many years like soaking everything in, didn't you? And like, and especially note that first. However, like you were saying in Australia, you were heading to the Connect groups and asking so many. I love that you joined a Connect group for 4 months. Love that.
Like straight away.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go.
I need to be
group.
around people that believe and think the same as me. So you were surrounding yourself with the right counsel, the right teachings, everything, and when you came back the same, like I joined teams, which is the correct thing to do, and you went on mission, which is a beautiful thing that we've all experienced, and you learn so much, don't you? And now you kind of come into a point where like the gift that God's given you is to then reflect that back and communicate. And I think this is something we really want to try and just delve into a little bit with you, Joe. Because both of us have experienced this from you in different like experiences in life where we've been able to soak in what you've been saying to us, and we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about like just how you lead yourself really on a daily basis, because we know you've got a passion for this and a passion to communicate this, so we kind of want to give you a space where you can. And maybe do a little bit of teaching, a little bit of that. But just what does it look like on a daily basis to lead yourself? Explain it a little bit.
That's a great question. I think, like, I'll go back a step in the sense that, like, I think my motivation isn't always just to lead myself. It's that I know what happens to other people when I lead myself well, and that is what then motivates me to do that. Because I think if it was just starting and ending with me, I probably don't have like the self-discipline to do it, but because I know how it affects others. And like I remember being like 6 or something, I was in like primary school in the infant side, and there was this girl, and she came up to me crying. She was a friend, and she, this is going to sound really ridiculous, but she couldn't eat her apple because, you know, the little stem bit was in the way. So I like twisted it off, which apparently she'd never seen before, twisted it off and like gave her it, and I was like, oh, you can eat all the apple now, and she was like really happy about it. And I only think it's a God thing that memory stuck in my head, because it really felt like a moment of like you can help other people with what you know. And so I think like when we look back at like past patterns and past areas where we found ourselves like remembering certain things or being influenced by certain things, like I totally think they're just like little breadcrumbs that God's left that you can like follow the trail back. And so now, like, that is kind of a motivating factor that, like when I share things that I know, it allows other people to walk in freedom, or it allows other people to reach their potential, or it just gets rid of something that's in the way. So like all of the motivation for me leading myself comes from the fact that when I lead myself, I can actually lead others really well. So like I work with great people who call this out of me as well. Like we talk about like our morning routines and stuff. It sounds really geeky, but kind of like getting up early and straight away, like I've got daily declarations that I do and read out some scripture, and then go into like a devotional. At the minute I'm reading Jesus by Lisa Harper, which is just like 60 devotionals on how good Jesus is, which is great. And then I've got like a book that I write, so like 3 things I'm thankful for, praising God. And I was really like intentional about that, because I was like, I always thank God, but when do I just praise him for like who he is and not just what I get from him or how he's like changed things. And I really want the vocabulary to be able to praise, like in worship. I think of certain people and like they have phrases. Can you think of people where they have phrases that they say because they so know that that's who God is to them? So I was kind of like, I've got a few stock like phrases that I know this is what God is to me, but I kind of want to branch out and have the real vocabulary for like biblical praise. So I do that, and then I pray for people. So I've got like a list of people I'm praying for salvation, for healing, and just anything in the day.
Wow.
And then like I've got the same breakfast, which is Greek yogurt, some kefir, nuts, and seeds. It sounds like a bird's.
So the same breakfast every day?
Yeah, because I just think if I have to decide, I'm going to go for like something unhealthy or Nutella on toast or not even anything. And I just, you know me, I don't like making decisions. So I'm like, it's just so easy. I buy 2 tubs of yogurt every time I go to the weekly shop at Aldi, and that's my healthy breakfast, and it keeps me, you know, going. I have a really nice coffee because I found like a few different brands of coffee that I like, and that's my morning, and it's great.
Wow.
I love it.
But like I think it's more the fact that like I'm just so aware of like what comes from intentionality. And so like there'll be exercise thrown in there depending on like what day it is. There'll be like certain days when I read more than other days, or I pray for a bit longer about certain things that are coming up than other days. And like just think, if I just know me, and I know if I didn't have this planned out, I would default to stuff that's just not that great. So like if I can control it, I'm just going to control it. So
isn't that like great self-awareness though? Like you know you're not very good at making decisions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pre-decide.
Yeah.
That's great, isn't it? Like how long have you not realised? Like had to put that into place? Like how long have you been doing that? Because there's self-awareness, and then there's actually putting it into place.
Doing it, isn't there? Yeah, probably like 3 or 4 years. In the most like intentional way. Yeah, I was probably aware of it a bit before that, but like it's what works with the schedule and season that you're in.
Does it change? Did you have to adapt it sometimes?
Yeah, so like it would be slightly different if I didn't work from home every day, for example. Or like there was one, I used to work in Coventry and have like a 2-hour journey there and a 2-hour journey back. So it was like I got up and got dressed really quickly and went to the train station. So I couldn't really do any of that, but during that time, it's like I read the Bible in 60 days or something, like because I've got all of that space to use. Like I'd pre-decided even then how I was going to use that space, because I know I'm going to scroll for 2 hours. Unless I actually like say I'm going to have an hour of a podcast, or you can still scroll, just don't scroll for the 2 hours. Like listen to something first and then scroll for a bit.
So with that example, so on a train, you put in that you were going to read. Because it was a discipline to do that, because you didn't want to scroll. I think, and this is me being completely honest, I think even if I'd put that in my notes that I was going to do that, or my diary that I was going to read, I'd still end up scrolling. I think I'd still. So
good honesty.
Thank you. I needed to. I feel like I'm growing here. What is like? When's the moment where it became just a default to do that, like it became a discipline, or whether it actually became just the norm to read rather than scroll?
Yeah, so I mean we've spoke about this a lot lately, but like it is about what you like, your identity and what you think about yourself and who you are. Like I knew that 2 hours of scrolling I wouldn't actually feel that great after it, but even like 5 minutes of reading was, one, like something for me to mull over in the day. 2, I knew it was having like a positive effect on me. And the more I did it, the more I then wanted that effect. But like at the start, it was difficult. I think like you've got to utilise tools that you've got. So I always have focus mode on my phone. So within 5 minutes of being on social media, it goes black and white, which just makes it way less. Like the pull of social media is in its colour, because as soon as it goes to black and white, it's just so not interesting.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Does this face look like I knew that?
I didn't know that. Does everyone know that?
I don't know.
So colour is...
It's like it's a massive pull because it's hitting all like the dopamine centres in your brain.
That has blown my brain, Anna.
So
Maybe try that, Josh.
Yeah.
So like every morning,
I
like
need to.
it's on till like if I was getting a train now, it wouldn't come on colour until like 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Like 'cause my train used to be at like 6:30.
Wow.
So that would then like just stop me because I just know. And then it's up to me to make the decision, which sometimes like you don't, and that's okay because like you're not perfect and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think the more you do make the decision and the more you become a person who reads or who listens to a podcast, or like, so like often people will say, how long did it take you to write a preach? And sometimes my answer has to be like 10 years because the content that I listened to 8 years ago that I can still remember because I've got a note on it, or just bits like stick out and you just remember it for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like all of that and that content and taking it all in, or reading a biblical book or reading a self-development book or whatever has all kind of shaped it. And so that became like, again, I'm not doing this for me. When I make this good decision, I've actually then got stuff to pass on to people.
Wow.
And it's that bit that then motivates me. Like, I don't want somebody to come to me with, what could we do about that? First of all, pray. But secondly, isn't it great if you've got a bit of a repository of things there where you can go, what about that? What about like the grayscale on social media?
Yeah.
Like, and you find that out from being aware of
Yeah.
lots of different things that podcasts or books can share.
So why are you so like that's beautiful that you've got that for yourself and like that's the purpose. But like obviously for you there's a bigger purpose, like you want to help other people. Like where does that come from? Like did that activate, when you found Jesus, or do you feel like, obviously you said about the Apple story, like
Apple story.
What is it about helping others that like ignites something in you?
Yeah, I do think it just comes back to that, and like I think God just puts certain purposes and gifts on people's lives, and it's only, I think it's like it's there whether you know Jesus or not. So like great musicians have that gift that could totally be used for God. Yeah. And if they don't know Jesus, it's used for them. And like it's not that they don't get the gift. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think like I can just track back where that's always been like the outworking of God. Mm-hmm. And now that I know him, I'm able to just be more intentional about it.
Yeah. It's great.
And like for me, it's always about releasing potential. And I could only speak to one person, but then, they speak to 10 people. And so you're like impacting 11 people. And I just think there's so much stuff out there that's like just not helpful, that it feels like a responsibility to steward then the stuff that I do have to share.
Yeah.
In order for it to then be helpful.
That's
for
great.
People.
Yeah.
And communicating has become massive passion, hasn't it? And obviously you chose preaching team as your favourite, which
sense.
I've logged.
Sorry.
But like, so talk to us about that process. I love speaking to preachers because it's interesting, isn't it? Because you preach quite regularly now, where you're part of the preaching team, you plough out series after series. What is like your process? What's, like you say, obviously you said 10 years then. It's obviously not 10 years when you come. I know we know what you mean by that, but what's your process when it comes to like taking something that, have you ever had something like that you've wanted to communicate, or did you find it easier to like come alongside a series and preach from like that kind of angle?
Interesting. I think I like having series because it allows you to like think within a certain box that helps you boundaries. Because sometimes if it's like preach on anything, it's like I don't even know where to start. And then, but we used to do that, didn't we? And then it would be God dropped something in, and it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So like I can totally, that's okay, and God would provide something there. But I think like having it in a series where you can build on things is really helpful. There's certain times, like Andy at the end of a preaching team meeting will be like, okay, who wants what? And like what sticks out to you, and there will be ones that stick out. Sometimes I'm like, should I go for the one that doesn't, because it's more of a challenge, and then I need to like work on it a bit more. Wow. Which sometimes comes up. But I think like it's that then that when I've suddenly got that topic, like there will just be things that come into my mind of like, I don't know if you get this, but like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to probably go from that angle.
Yeah.
My most recent preach, you know, the 3 questions that were like, would you do it anonymously? Would you do it if it cost you? Would you do it if people disagreed? Was from a conversation that I had with a colleague who was asking about whether they should write worship music and how they know they're doing it for the right motivations. Yeah. And those 3 things kind of just came out, and I was like, I'm going to write them down because they're quite good. Yeah. And then this came up, this topic, and I was like, oh, great, like that totally works. So I think like the more you preach, the more you just like collect ideas. And so I've got like, oh my days, so many notes on my phone. Like I just type in a word and see if I've ever written anything that is about that word.
Wow, that's cool.
Because there's just so many. So like there's always like a bit of like a stock of ideas that I can go off, and then it's obviously praying it through. And I end up with like 4 documents where I've got a complete brain splurge of just everything on the page. And then I kind of like highlight bits that are probably bits that would make it into like the final preach. And I move it over to another document, but then there's still too much. And then I move it over to another. And by the end, there's probably still too much as well, because I end up preaching loads. But I just kind of like refine it like that. So it's fun.
Wow. Another vehicle that you use, which we'll move on to, is your Instagram page.
Oh, we have to talk about
Joe
this.
Here. A lot of people listening will know about that. Obviously, people that are on Instagram will know. Just explain to us what we're talking about when we say Instagram and Hey Joe Here. Explain to us what it is, but also maybe like we'd love to know like the origin of how it started and the purpose of it, really.
Nice. So Hey Joe Here is an Instagram account. Just basically, there's like 3 buckets it comes into, like faith, books, and habits, because they're just 3 things that I love to share about. And again, it is like the stewardship thing of like being able to communicate something that's helpful. And I think like I had this just bit of a revelation, really, that like social media is such a vehicle for change and for, you know, it can be used for good or bad things. And like as naturally quite like an introverted, quiet person, it takes a lot for me to like put myself on it. But I was just very aware that like if I don't take that territory, somebody will, and I'd rather Jesus take it through me than somebody who's you know sharing lies or sharing stuff that's not helpful has that. So it was just really as like a way to share positive messages, like faith-filled challenges as well. Like I often get told like I've got quite a gentle way of challenging that can be quite well received. So anything, and it always starts with me. So like I have to process all of this like challenge about what I'm thinking, and then suddenly when I see the benefits of it, it's like, okay, if I pass this on, it allows people to be released into like extra potential or freedom. That's always going to be the motive for me. So it was more of a way of just, if I've got this message, it's only right to steward it and to share it. That's and it is just a message of like how good Jesus is and how transformation comes and how we do get to make good decisions to allow that to then have a greater impact as well. So it all comes from that. The origin story, you know, do you remember the Hannah generation?
Yeah, I do.
So it started off as an account that was never like linked to my name, and it was all about praying for different like needs around the world, because I just really had that on my heart. And so I'd share like loads of like things each day of things to pray for. And then kind of just felt like I needed to put my name to it, which is just a massive step. It's just I really didn't want to be associated with something out there. But I did. And I was just, so it's Hey Joe Here, because it's Hey Joe Here. We don't always get mocked about.
They're just jealous.
Hey
Joe Here.
So, you know,
I love it.
You have so much, like, your life is quite crazy. Obviously, we know you, so we know your calendar is very busy. I'm guessing habits will come into this. But how, like, do you, because the social media accounts, we're well aware of, it's a hard thing to run and get regular content out on a daily basis, alongside a full-time job, alongside being part of the SLT of your church and preaching team and worship team where you need to be at practices. he needs to be at this meeting, on that preaching team meeting, then and then that SLT meeting, and that prayer meeting, and this and that. How have you got into a rhythm of all that working alongside also loving life, getting a great social life, and also like seeing your family and all that kind of stuff? How do you get that to work?
I think it is just all being like really intentional with time and like seeing the benefits of how it is when you do that well. Like I'm like, there's loads of things that I could do way better, but like just I know the things that have to be in. I know my morning, like, because it's so set, it's so energising for me that I feel like I get into the day and I'm just like ready. So I have like a set the day time for half an hour at the start of the day where I've got a checklist of like the absolute important things that I need to do. And then the things that I can do that, it's like knowing your energy levels. So we talk about this loads at work, which is great when you've got people to run with who are like really similar to you. Yeah. So they won't put a call in if I'm in a red zone where I know my energy's low and actually I need to be going out for a walk, or I need to be doing something that like requires a lot less brain activity, where it's just more like manual tasks and like replying to emails that are really normal and don't require a lot of thinking power. Yeah. And then go for a little walk, get yourself back up, and then you're ready to attack the next thing. So I think it's all about like energy management more than time management.
Wow.
That's good. Like
I know that between like probably 12 and 2 is my red zone. So I just don't put anything important in at that. And that's, I've got the way I can make my schedule like that. So I've got the freedom to do it, which I understand not everybody has. But then on an evening, like I know that I actually get a second wind like 8 till 10. So if I need to bash stuff out then, I do. I don't try and do it at 6 o'clock when I know I'm not in the zone to do it. Yeah. And then I've just wasted some time that I could be refilling. Because like I could be cooking then, which I actually really like. Yeah. And that then fills me so I can go again at 8. Whereas if I tried to work at 6, nobody would be any better for it. And I'd just be more tired. Yeah. So I've just learned this over the years and like reading loads and like thinking it through. And actually, like, it's really easy to read stuff, isn't it? And I did this for years and not actually action any of it. So I had to start actioning it and being like, okay, what is helpful here? Like, I get up early on a Sunday before I preach because I know, like, that's a really good time for me to just clarify the message in my head, and trying to do it on a Saturday evening is no good. Like, I need to switch off on a Saturday evening and then I do that on a Sunday morning. So it's like knowing your own rhythms. Yeah. If that answers the question.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's absolutely fantastic.
I'm listening.
It's brilliant,
notes.
Isn't it?
Can't wait to listen to this one again.
So how, you just said about reading, and obviously me and Josh know that you love reading. You can read 10 books by the time I've read one.
Before I even read a title.
And this ties in with Hey Joe here and how can people get involved. You do something called Read for 30. Can you just unpack that a little bit? Like, where did that come from? Like, it's such a great idea.
Thanks. I don't know actually where it came from, but it was more again like that potential thing, and like I've seen the benefit. I would never recommend something that I wouldn't see the benefits of. So when I've then been reading and seen the benefits of it, and so many people have conversations with me like, oh, I'd love to be able to read, or I'd love to read more. And I was in, like, I haven't read all my life, like I was in that position as well, and it's only been probably because I had all those train journeys where I could read that I fell in love with that and saw all the benefits of it. That then it was like, okay, if other people are in this position, like, how can you make it helpful? And like with habits especially, making them easy, having other people to do it with them, having a set time, not trying to go like hell for leather at the start, but you know, just reading a few pages, are like really good hacks to actually get into the zone of having that habit and actually being a reader. So let's have like an accountability sort of way of reading together. So the idea is that it's the maximum of 30 minutes a day. Normally, like, the allocation's probably like 15 to 20 minutes for a normal paced reader, I think. Yeah. And so, just any books that I find particularly helpful, because I'm always getting asked for book recommendations. I was like, we'll have normally they're about a month to 6 weeks each, and we make our way through a book at a time. Wow. And everybody reads the same. You can catch up at weekends. Yeah. And then it just means that by the end of it, you've read, by the end of the year, probably like 12 books. Yeah.
Have you got any like testimonies of like that? So say somebody said, why should I
get involved with Hey Joe here, and you've got any like testimonies or like stories where people have been in touch where these kind of like read whatever what's it called Read for 30
yeah.
where it's really worked and got people into reading.
Yeah, so like loads of people who I don't know are actually doing it then just pop up and are like, I've been reading this one, or we did a Bob Goff one a couple of months ago, and they were like, I've had this on my shelf for ages, and every time I look at it I think, I've wasted my money because I've never read that and I really need to. And then she's like, and now I've read it and I absolutely loved it and I'm already halfway through his next one, and like moments like that, and people like requesting ones like, I'd really love to read this but I've not managed it, but if you put it on your thing I might. So can you do
I wonder
it?
what that is. Do you think it's just the accountability?
Yeah, I would
yeah,
say
just
so.
doing it as a
probably
group, I
knowing
think.
as well that people are
That other
doing it at
people
the same
are reading
time.
as
Yeah.
well. Because
Yeah.
it does.
I know, it's weird,
It does
isn't it?
work. Are
Do
you
you
in
ever-
one now? Are you in one?
So starting on December 1st.
Okay, yeah.
Do you ever get like people like, because in my head this is almost like a little book club. Like, do you
Yeah.
ever get people
Oh,
wanting to
that's
discuss
cute.
like the day, what they read that day, like in the comments or anything? Have you ever found that?
Yeah, so at one point I did start posting in the comment and in like my actual feed, but I just thought it was cluttering it up a bit, and I was like,
yeah.
I don't know how helpful it is.
Yeah.
But I do get messages like, I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that one, or
Yeah.
enjoyed today, or
Yeah.
like people are like, we made this one our book club for the month, or there's like loads of
Yeah.
different things like that, which is cool because like the whole point is just helping people to enjoy
Yeah.
reading, because
Yeah.
it's such a, like it calms your brain down and just all the different effects that it has, and then you also learning loads. And for people who maybe feel a bit intimidated by the Bible, when we've got like a Facebook that has a lot of scripture throughout it,
Yeah.
it's like a gateway into like all of this actually did come from the Bible,
Yeah.
and you can read it too. But it's a really big step to know where to start with that. So
Yeah,
any
it
kind
is.
of one that can,
Yeah.
or like testimony-based books are always a win.
Yeah.
Like starting your morning like that and reading about how God's done something in somebody's life that's like incredible, and then you go
Yeah.
into your day and it's like, well, what you got then? Because this
Yeah,
is going to
yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
And it just comes
Yeah,
from
well.
intentionality.
So people are watching right now and they think, I would really love to get into reading. They could obviously go to Hey Joe here and join on the 1st of December the new Read for 30.
Yeah.
But what would you say? Because I think reading, obviously, I know, for instance, like I love a simpler book, especially as I'm not a heavy reader. Like if something that was complicated, I would get to a point where I'd be like, I can't take this in anymore. What would you say are 3 good starting books, maybe, just to get a little bit of a taster for that life, maybe?
For the
For the
style
reading
of
life.
reading.
For the reading life.
Sarah, now I'm going to recommend Gentle and Lowly, because
Oh.
that is just my favourite book
And that
ever.
is, I'm
Did that
reading-
come from a Read for 30? Is that where? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that book.
It's just wonderful.
Transform stuff.
It's great.
Yeah.
So that's by Dane C. Ortland.
Yeah.
And
We'll
it's
put all
just-
these in the description
Yeah,
below.
it's epic. The Power of Moments is another book that I really like,
Wow.
which you've kind of read as well, haven't you, I think? Which is like...
Still haven't finished it.
No,
Jo.
that's fine. But I think that's partly the thing of like one, if you don't like a book, stop. Like people have this
Wow.
thing of if they start a book, they have to finish it, and it's like,
That's cool.
why are you doing something you resent every day? Please just stop and find another book.
Wow.
Secondly, like fiction still counts, like stories,
Yeah.
and so read stories. Like you've lent me Narnia. I'm on the last Narnia book because I've been reading
No,
it like.
are you actually?
So I've been reading it before bed as like my switch off. There's so many like biblical principles in Narnia.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
gosh.
just
It's going to be in a
like,
preach day soon.
Oh,
read
yeah.
that. Yeah, totally. So like read fiction. Like go slow if you need to. If
Yeah.
it gets too much, like do just stop. You'll have got something from it, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
So yeah, so Gentle and Lowly is definitely one. Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath is like a good way to get into the non-fiction side of it, because it's just cool stories about like marking moments, and it just makes you rethink how you do things.
That's cool.
Third one, I haven't actually thought about what this one would be, and I've read. There's so many that like my most recent one is always like my favourite. So I'm going to have
What's
to
your most recent one?
go.
Tell us your most recent one.
It's Smarter, Faster, Better by
Okay.
Charles Duhigg, which is really good.
Yeah.
All about teams and just working
Wow.
well and habits and things. So it is a very good one. All It Takes Is a Goal by John Acuff. Soundtracks by John Acuff. That's great. Those are 2 really good books. I really like John Acuff
Wow.
as an author. anything by Jenny Allen, Lisa Whittle. They're great. There's just I could literally go
those
on
authors
for
are getting shout
ages.
outs on the show.
Yeah.
They are.
Wow.
But I think the key thing is like, don't be scared to stop.
Yeah.
Like, start small, because if you're not used to reading, why would you suddenly do anything that you're not used to doing for like an hour a day? So just pop it in the morning.
Yeah.
And then like normally though, that's when it becomes self-propelling, because the more you see how like nice it is, or how good it is that you've got certain perspectives on things that you wouldn't have had otherwise, that then you feel more compelled to just keep reading anyway. But that only comes from just starting really small.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
start
so
small.
good.
That is great.
So good. I'm going to have to bring us to a close. I feel like we could have spoke forever. We're going to honour you just for a couple of minutes. We are so thankful for you, Joe. We're so thankful for everything you do for Arise. Like when you were named off the teams, I was like, wow, she does so much. And we're so thankful for that. And one of the things you said a couple of questions ago about when I asked you about how do you fit everything in, and you said I do this and this, but I could still do things better. I love that you want to teach people, but you're still so teachable. I love that. I love that you know that there's so much more that you need to know, and that comes out in so many different areas, doesn't it? And like if you do want to get hooked into Hey Joe here, please go to Instagram and do that. I'm sure. Maybe go to a comments and say you came from the real life show. Imagine that. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? But yeah, we're so thankful for you, Joe. Thank you for coming on. We hope you've enjoyed coming on. We do something with our guests every single week, which you'll know. You will have listened to this moment, which is carnage.
But you wouldn't have seen it.
You wouldn't have seen
Just
it.
listen
I've
to
seen
it.
Jackie's.
You've seen Jackie's because she
Oh,
watched Jackie's. That was a favourite.
Yeah.
Do you remember? So, do you want to do the usual? Do you want to go around?
Yeah. Are you going to use your phone?
I'll use my phone, yeah. No, it's not much of a listen. To help,
narrate what
we
you're
are
doing.
taking
Am I just
selfie
standing
now.
here?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know. Oh, there we go.
that's good.
Nice. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that works.
Do I
Oh,
need
what are you
to?
doing?
Squat.
Are you squatting?
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Where's the camera? There we go.
That green dot there, everyone.
Green dot, got it.
Yay!
Lovely.
I realised as well, a little bit in, that this episode comes out in 2024. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, Sarah. Happy New Year,
Here's
Joe.
to 2024.
Here's to
Oh, it's going
2024.
to be a great year.
May it be blessed. Thank you for coming on, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
We've loved it. Thank you for listening. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify. We're on Apple Music now, which is absolutely fabulous. Amazon Music and Audible. You can say, Alexa, play the Real Life Show.
That's cool.
And
That's really cool.
Alexa would go, playing Real Life Show. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
That's good.
Thank you again to Backyard for having
Thank
us.
you.
We love coming. Thank you, Andrea, for hosting us as usual. But apart from that,
Great hosting with you, Josh.
as usual. So, thank you, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
And
you,
we'll
Joe.
see you on the next one.
See you.
See you then.
Bye.